Today, we're going to talk about repacks once again because everybody's favorite sports card influencer, CBlez, put out a reel on Instagram where he tagged a crap ton of people asking their opinions. And essentially what he talked to, it was this reel over here, was the difference between, breakers and repackers and how a lot of breakers are now turning into repackers. And he talked through, the pricing perspective on their part and a bunch of other things. And you can sort of see over here, there is a crap ton of dialogue that's happening off the back of this, which I think is very interesting. The reason why I want to talk about it is because, CBlez raised a few interesting things that I think is a bunch of breakers trying to change a narrative on how repacks should actually work. Because what he essentially talks to, and I'll let this play because you'll see it, pop up on screen. But what he essentially says is that, these breakers are turning into repackers. That's a problem because what are these guys doing, etc., which I completely agree with. But what he sort of explains as part of the problem is that these repackers have to pay, 90 to 95% of comps to get the cards in the first place, meaning that they then need to charge customers, 150% of comps in order to make money, which, straight off the bat, I think is complete BS. And I'll get to my thoughts on that in a second. And I just think it's a bunch of breakers trying to change a narrative. But the other thing he sort of mentions why it's a problem is because these dealers are waiting for the repackers to come because they know that somebody trying to buy a single, as an example, they won't basically sell it for less than 95% because they know a repack is going to take it. Now, how much of that is true, I'm not entirely sure. But the other point that I raised around breakers saying that's how you can only do repacks is complete bullshit. And I hate the fact that this, narrative is trying to be changed to suit that agenda for them to rip you off as customers. Because we spoke about this when the whole Justin Gamble situation came up, and we'll come back to CBlez in a second. Because one of the things that was very interesting when it came to his reply towards me was, the market's down, repackers are having to pay a lot more money to get stuff now. And you sort of saw what he was doing there, where it looked very much like he was ripping off customers, scamming customers. And I raised the point at the time that you had companies like Card Lab here in Australia and companies like Run Good Life that do a fantastic job when it comes to repacks, right? They specify all the hits, they talk about odds, they talk about the number of packs, so you as a customer know exactly what you're buying. But what Blez is sort of talking to here, these breakers that have turned repackers, don't do that, and they basically buy things for 95% comps and then have to sell it for 150% because that's the only way to make money. When I just talk to the likes of Card Lab and Run Good Life, don't do that. They pay high comps, but they still make really good money. They make really good margins without ripping off their customers. And it's just very frustrating to see breakers trying to change this narrative. Now, I'm not saying Blez is trying to change that narrative because it looks like he's standing against that, which is really good. It's the other breakers out there. And my point of putting this out is don't let these guys take the piss with you. Don't let them take advantage of you by saying this is how things have to get done. Because the repackers that are out there that are doing things the right way are not doing it like that. They're not ripping off their customers to make their money. And I think some of this is because these breakers, over the last 2 to 3 years, were literally making money hand over fist by ripping you off when it came to breaks. Anybody can, stand on a hill and try and defend the fact that these breakers did a good job. And I'm talking in general here because a lot of breakers did a good job. But so many breakers were getting boxes, for dirt cheap and then, making 5, 6, 7 times comps, for the sale of that box by selling it to people. And yes, you can blame the people for buying them at the end of the day. That's more than fine. The point I'm trying to make is they've had those really crazy margins and they've got used to it. Their lifestyles have been built around maintaining those margins. And because people aren't really super interested in jumping into breaks like they were previously, like yes, breaking is still booming, but you guys get what I'm trying to say here. They're trying to now do the same with repacks. And they're basically coming out and saying, well, we have to sell this at 150% comp. So when you get a card, you're basically losing 50% straight off the bat at a minimum. And that's not okay. Don't let them try and change the narrative, right? If you want to be a repacker, there's things you need to do. You need to be transparent. You need to do things the right way. And there's plenty of examples out there, Card Lab, Run Good Life, to name many, many more as well, that do the right thing. So don't let these breakers try and say to you, this is how it needs to get done. And if you see breakers doing that, push back against them. And if they're not giving you a checklist, tell them to go F themselves, because that is complete bullshit. I just hate seeing this kind of crap. And you've got people out there that are trying to defend it. Now, again, I'm not saying Blez is trying to defend it, but if you go into the comment section, you're going to see people saying, well, this is how it has to get done. It's not how it has to get done. They're ripping you off as a customer. They're trying to, build a bullshit casino like they did with their, breaking process. Don't let them get away with it. If you see them doing it, ask them the tough questions. Put pressure on them to say, this is unacceptable. But unfortunately, we know too well that people are going to be flocking to that kind of crap and then only complain afterwards. But people are still going to be buying it, which is why they're doing it. But again, my general point is don't let them get away with this kind of BS because it is. It's totally unacceptable and it's a complete fabrication It is complete fucking bullshit when they say, apologies for swearing, when they say they have to charge you 150% in order to make good money off those repacks. There are so many repackers out there that maintain very tight margins and are still making fantastic money. It's complete bullshit when these guys say they have to charge you 150%. Don't buy into that, and don't let them get away with saying that. And you need to be asking questions around people that are trying to substantiate the fact that that has to get done in order for them to make money, because they're obviously like really fucking hopeless business people in order to do that in the first place. Now, there's some interesting comments here, I think, from like the likes of Raul, where he sort of says, repackers need to show the odds of winning. If not, that's a problem. I agree. Ziggy's obviously commenting because Ziggy hates repackers in general, and I'm sure he'll give me some comments down below. I'm trying to work through something with Ziggy at the moment. I'm just trying to find the time to do it, so I apologize once again to Ziggy. But you can sort of see here, because Cage replied, then he says, yes, that's correct. They need to be doing that kind of stuff. And I gave the example of Run Good Life and Card Lab. Cage then replied, but then my reply here is an important one, or at least I think. It's essentially what I just talked to, where I say it's why I always find it odd when breakers turn repackers say it can't be done. They say it can't be transparent. They say they can't tell you the number of hits. They can't tell you anything, right? There's a reason why they're not telling you this stuff, because they don't want you to know. And there's a very famous example from the National, I think in 2022 it was, maybe 2021, where it was in a vlog that I tried to find beforehand. I couldn't find it. And this guy had a bunch of repacks. The show hadn't opened yet. All the repacks are sitting on the table. It may have been a Dallas Card show, actually. But anyway, the packs are sitting on the table. One of the hits was a Jordan rookie, if I remember correctly. Somebody came up filming and they said, oh, that Jordan rookie's good. How much are the repacks? I think it was like the price of all the repacks combined was less than the comps of that MJ rookie. So the person was like, sweet, let me buy every single repack. And the person selling them said, no, he wouldn't sell them, even though no repacks had been sold. And obviously that's pretty, suspicious behavior, right? You're not going to do that. If you're somebody that's priced all your repacks, irrespective of wanting to get your name out there, if you've priced your repacks and you can make the money, of course you're going to want to sell them to one person, because you can make your money all up front and you avoid the risk of somebody hitting the chase card early on, and then, whispers go around and all of a sudden your repacks are worthless. So this guy wanted to buy it because the comps were, a really good play. He would have made money off it. And it turns out the guy didn't sell it because the, MJ rookie wasn't in there in the first place. And that kind of stuff is really pervasive when it comes to repacks. You don't need me to explain it to you. It's just complete BS. And I just don't like the fact that these guys are trying to change the narrative. Don't let them get away with it. Push back when you see it, because it's total bullshit when they say they have to pay 95% to get something, which means they then have to charge you 150%. Repacks have a sliding scale in terms of the value, the valuableness of, is that the word? The value of the cards within them, I think is what I'm trying to say. So obviously they're not going to make bank off every single card within there, but the good repackers will have cards in a repack that is maybe worth, 60, 70% of the product itself, right? So they're going to make big margins on those and then tight margins on the chase cards for the most part. And if you want to see how it's meant to be done, go look at Run Good Life and Card Lab. Run Good Life doesn't run them often, but the ones he does, he even gives an Excel checklist with the ratios and all that sort of stuff, right? These guys do it right. They put banger cards in there, and I'm not advertising for these guys. I'm just saying, you got people saying it can't be done. Go look at them, make up your own mind. Now, the last thing I want to quickly talk to, I know I'm talking very fast today, so I do apologize, is another little, video that Blez put out following that post, because somebody gave a comment around the fact that we should be thanking repackers because the singles market would be down the drain without them, right? Because the repackers going there, paying up all the tables, they're buying everything. They're the ones that are keeping, the buying and selling flowing and all that sort of stuff. So we should be thankful for that. And that's, a very fine position to take. But the one thing I want you guys to keep front of mind is, if there's a lot of repackers out there and they're saying this sort of stuff, which might be correct, what does that tell you about the value of your cards within the current market? Because if they're only propped up by repackers, and these repackers then go ahead and charge you an arm and a leg and rip you off by selling it to you, you've now got to dump these cards. You've already made a huge loss. What's the sentiment going to be like within the wider hobby, the wider community, when that stuff starts to happen? You're going to have things tank very quickly because, these repackers are buying things for affordable prices. They're charging prices up here. That's the new floor for their customers. And then you've got that huge gap between what the card is actually worth and what people have paid. And if this stuff is allowed to spread and become more pervasive, more systemic, I should say, you're going to have problems of cards being even more inflated than what they probably are right now, which is probably a little bit hard to believe. So that was a mini rant from me today. I hope you guys did enjoy it. I just think it's crazy. I hate the fact that these breakers are trying to change the narrative. They got so greedy during the pandemic. They were making money hand over fist. They want to keep that going right here, right now. And the way they're telling you is the only way it can get done is a complete fucking bullshit. Now, I'm keen to hear what you guys have to say. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.